And I always get asked, so like when's it a good time to cut wet? When's it a good time to cut dry? Well, in this instance, we're working on a texture that allows you to do it both ways. If you've tuned into any of my previous lives, I usually do one side dry, one side wet, and just see some of the differences. But what I like about approaching something like this with all this intent and the structure and the precision involved is this can be really good for your clients that actually want to flip-flop a little bit and wear their hair straight sometimes or wear their hair curly, because you're putting such a defined shape into it. Whereas the curl by curl approach can be much more lived in, soft, but it doesn't actually apply towards the side of like, oh, I'm gonna iron my hair and want everything to look perfect. So water is your friend in this scenario. More water, the better. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a section that incorporates her entire hairline. I'm not gonna start with the little baby sliver in the back.
Sarah asked, this music is really good. What is it?
All India Radio. And this album is called The Silent Surf. Really cool, kind of mellow, ambient stuff.
And then A. Marie Chiavetta asked, what you're feeling on cutting curl by curl?
I equate curl by curl as very lived in. When it speaks to the texture, when you want to intentionally create space and variation. Consider like how a razor cut is. A razor cut intentionally creates all these different lengths with this intent and with this shape in mind, but it's not being as rigid as something like what we're doing right now. And I think with curls, there's a time and place for everything. There's not a right or wrong. Every scenario is different and every head of hair is different, but I think it totally comes down to what you're aiming to achieve, like what the desired look is.
She also added in layering curly hair.
So another thing I was touching on prior was that approaching something very technically like this is great for those clients that want to iron their hair sometimes and they want to see a definite shape. Now, if we layer on top of this and we go curl by curl, we're intentionally creating different lengths throughout. And the reason why that is because when curls, sometimes, depending on the curl type, when they're cut perfectly, like if you cut a perfect shape into something, it doesn't allow the curls the space to be able to move and look and feel organic. It actually bunches them all together, and that's where you have people who say like, oh, I really don't want the mushroom haircut, or I don't want the triangle top or the roof top. It's because their curl type sometimes is so tightly wound that when you put these rows on top of one another, it doesn't give the individual curls the space that's needed in order for them to expand and look differently. So I do things both ways, and I think that it all comes down to what I'm actually trying to achieve. All right, so I've got side 2, the right side, and I'm going to follow the same principles that I did on the left side, but things are going to be 10 times easier for me now. Now this hair that's in her face right now, it wants to push forward, but she's not going to wear it like that. We have these things called cheekbones that are usually more pronounced than what's happening on this doll head. So I'm going to intentionally start to comb her hair back and move it off of her face, and I'm going to hold it in my fingers. So that's section number 1. And now I'm going to drop this next section on top of it. The great thing about approaching it this way as well is if you can see where the hair is actually hanging over, it has nothing to do with what lives in the very, very front. So I'm very confident that I'm not going to actually affect anything that's contributing to that length that she's seeing and that she's actually liking. I'm more of just cleaning up the bits that live behind it. So a really important thing when looking at a line is to not only look at it at eye level, utilize your mirror, but to also look at it straight on and consider whether you're actually liking what you see. And I do. She does. We did this right side in 2 sections in under 5 minutes. Whereas this side, the more traditional way, the way we were all taught in school, took a really long time. All these steps. This side, 2 steps.